Carolina. But there's some other stuff that we've been doing for years that most people don't know about. We're going to look for some clams today. These cut banks along the ICW and along the beaches here also offer plenty of shark's teeth too. And then we'll probably move back into some of the creeks, learn how to throw the cast nets, catch some shrimp. And if everything works out right, guys, I think we're going to try to take some of those live shrimp and maybe go try to catch a few trout or black drum. All right, folks, so what we're doing right now is, first of all, we're looking for claw hogs, clams, hard-shell clams. There's one right here. We'd call this a little neck. You know, this is just a really good place for it. All these shells right here, all this shell up and down the ICW, it helps catch the spat, the small clams as they're settling down. And what you want to do is you really want low tide. You really just have to turn over the shell, work that edge, just work the edge of the water line. And sometimes, there's one there, look. Sometimes you'll find big knots of them. We call them knots, but concentrations of them. If you're getting a really good spot and maybe 5 or so square yards, you might pick up 15 or 20 clams. Girls, guys, let's go ahead and get down and probably just stay right along this edge of this water. And they're not deep. The bottom was right there, so they were just a 1/4 inch or so into the ground. But there's layers of clams. The smaller ones are layered down that can be up to about 16, 18 inches deep. Alyssa didn't even scrape the bottom here. She was over here working. I happened to look down at her foot, and that looks like the lips of a clam sticking up. He's a bivalve. Clam's a bivalve. So on this corner of the clam, that corner of that shell, let's pull it out. So yeah. On that corner of the shell right there, he'd open up, and two little valves, looks like two little hoses would come out, tubes, and one of them sucks the water in, runs it through its filter. It's a filter feeder, and then spits the water back out of the other tube. Since we're along the ICW and we get yachts coming through here, we get 2 and 3 and 4 foot waves getting crashed up on these beaches all the time, on these shores. So it washes this stuff out, just literally washes them out. If they're just below the surface, a lot of times their hinges will stick out. Pop it out. We might not even have to hack this morning. There's 2 with their lips sticking out. I've spent probably 15 years just targeting these literally for a living, and pick up anywhere from about 700 on a slow day to 2,000 on a really good day. There's another one. Now he's a little small. See that, guys? He's just under 1 inch, so 1 inch in width, minimum 1 inch width. So I'm gonna stick him right back in the ground. I don't want to just drop him on the ground and leave him exposed. If I do, he might not dig back down before something gets him. Those clams, when you hit one, it's just a real solid feeling, and it's a different sound on the teeth, the prongs of the rake. Right here, look, guys, see that one? That wasn't us. We hadn't hacked there. That was just the waves coming up and washing that out of the bottom. Go ahead and pry them out. Make sure you count them up, okay? I'm gonna give you a quiz. All right, we've been here about what, 15 minutes maybe? 15 minutes or so, and we've already picked up 60 clams. We've just been using a couple little garden hacks, little garden rakes. And look, Graham just found another one sticking out of the bottom right here. You know, really good eating these are. They're called quaw hogs, hard-shell clams. They're harvested up and down the whole eastern seaboard. If you don't have a commercial license, you can't sell these. So you can harvest them and you can keep them to eat, but you still have to pay attention to the guidelines. We are around the ICW, and typically from the ICW out toward the inlets, that's always open unless there's a lot of rain in a short period of time, which drops the salinity. If you're not sure about the maps and how to read those maps on open and closed areas, you'd want to at least at minimum call Division of Marine Fisheries in North Carolina in Morehead City and ask them. But we call these little necks. We start getting into clams about this size. We call those top necks. And I don't really have too much for, these might border cherry stones. That size, a little larger than that, we call them cherry stones. And then the larger ones, anything bigger than that, we call chowders. And the smaller ones are actually worth more money. They're usually tender piece of meat in there. And as you get larger, they're a little more tough. Cherry stones and the chowders, we typically make clam chowder with those, where we take the clam on the half shell, dice up everything, make a good mixture, and then bake it into the shell. And the smaller ones, like the top necks and the little necks, we tend to eat those on the half shell a lot of times, so, or put them in a sauce or something like that. So make sure you contact Division of Marine Fisheries, go out, get you a few hack rakes, catch you a few clams, and add something else to the dinner table on the weekend. We've hopped up on a little spot of cut bank here, we're looking for shark's teeth. Most people look for shark's teeth out along the beach, and the beach is typically a lot of just real fine sand. The ICW, the Intercoastal Waterway up and down the coast of North Carolina, has been cut. It's man-made. They've dredged it out probably 40 plus years ago, and they've piled that stuff up on the edge of what is the ICW, and these things we call them cut banks. And these cut banks are all dredge material, dredge spools. That's what we're standing on right now. If you walk up and down these cut banks, you'll find certain cut banks tend to have good, big deposits of shark's teeth on them, where there was a lot of them, I guess, buried up in the ICW when they were dredged out years ago. There's one right here. It's not a real well-formed tooth. It's kind of worn. Let me turn it a little bit. There it is there. It's missing the, from your perspective, the left-hand top of the root right there. That would have been the point of the tooth, and there's the top right-hand side of the root. But there's a tooth that's probably about 3/4 of an inch in length. And hold on, look. There's another one right there. Look, it's still buried up. See that? There's a tiger shark tooth right there. And you're going to find a variety of colors up here. They're not going to all be white. A lot of these are real dark in color where they were buried up for years and years and years in the clay bottom. This happens to be kind of a clay-like bottom just below us here on the water's edge. So guys, what we want to do is we want to get down near the water's edge and maybe stay side by side like a little search team and then comb through here and looking for these teeth, okay? We'll see how many we can find. We'll work our way back toward the boat. That tooth's about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches long. And a nice tooth there. It's missing a little piece of the root, but it's a nice big tooth. Good job, Graham. And usually you don't even have to push it around a little bit. You can just see them sticking on top. Alyssa just found a monster. Look at that. That one's, it's not a full tooth, but that's a, that's probably off a mako or something. That's large. There's the left-hand top part of the root's missing on that one. There's another one right there. That's a piece of one. That's not a whole one. Look, see it? See the part of the root's gone? That's a monster right there. I don't know. We have to look at that. It's worn down a lot. See it? The point come down to here. The root is probably, what, 2 inches wide, but it's almost as wide as it is tall. An extinct mako shark tooth, or it's a megalodon tooth, a great white. That's the main tooth. The root was real narrow. A piece of root's missing. Again, that's probably a mako tooth there. See it? That's a brown one there. Looks like a little dusky. Real long tooth, about 2 inches long. The width would have been 1.25 inches. That looks like it's probably a tiger tooth. The point's missing off of here. It turns a little more. It's got really sharp, jagged edges. I don't know. We probably spent about a half hour up on this cut bank, and it looks like Graham gets the award for the biggest, the prettiest tooth. You come by those once every 4 or 5 times on a good area like we're on right here. That's a really good tooth, Graham. The width is pretty close to its height too, so it might be an old great white tooth or small megalodon tooth. This one looks more like the extinct mako tooth. Even if the other side was here, it would, the width would be probably an inch, hair of an inch, and the height would be 2 inches or so. So that's probably an extinct mako, but we'll have to check the chart on that too. We've got a few tiger shark's teeth right there, usually a little more turn to them. They got real sharp ridges down the edges of those tiger teeth. And we get into these and we're looking at like our duskies and stuff. We got quite a few teeth though. We probably picked up 30, 40 teeth there in about a half. We're moving into the back creeks right now. It's about mid-October. And this is close to the end of our run of shrimp in the backwaters. And we're going to learn how to cast a cast net, and we're going to try to catch some shrimp. If we catch some real big ones, we might go ahead and eat them, throw them with our clams and eat those. But we're definitely going to try to catch some to use for bait. There's really no need to use a net any taller. The height of the net, which is actually, this 6-foot net is actually a 12-foot diameter, so that it's got a 6-foot radius opened up, but we call it a 6-foot net. It's named after its radius. There's really no need to go much larger on the size of the net than the depth of the water. So if we're in 4 or 5 foot of water, I don't need more than a 6-foot net. The lead starts sinking, pulling down, and the net kind of forms like an umbrella. And it slowly comes together until it's almost vertical again, and it would close up if it had to sink too deep. So you need a larger net in deep water. The only advantage you're getting with the larger net now is if you come into an area, you're covering more area, quickly with a single cast. I'll bring mine, I call it choking it up to that height here, adjusting to that height. I fold my net over so it's like a 3-foot net. And I'm using my right hand now, so if you were using left hand, it would be opposite. But I'm going to grab some leads and I'm going to hang them on like 2 fingers. I don't want to use 1 finger because you'll strain that finger, but 2 fingers. And then the left side of the net, I grab the lead line so that the inside of the net with all the threads is pointing away from me. About halfway through the stroke of this motion, I'll open up the back of my hand and let all this bunt right here go. I'll let it all go. And the only thing I'll be holding on is these 2 fingers. These 2 fingers will still be holding on. I'll let go of all this mesh I've got pinched in between I'll use my index finger and my middle finger to pull that net around to keep the motion going. This is not a heavy net. It weighs about 6 or 7 pounds. So it's a nice, gentle motion. You might see us do it real quick when we're throwing real hard, but we're not actually throwing real hard. We're getting a rotation off from it when we do it. So, and it happens so quick, it's probably a split second between letting the bunt go and then finally letting the leads go. Good cast. That's got to be a shrimp or 2 right there. I'm going to get right next to you in case there's a bunch of them there. All right, good. Start pulling it in. Open it up, drop them in there, shake them out. These shrimp start showing up for us. It starts off with the brown shrimp, and that's early in the season, usually around May or so. They just start showing up. And by June, we've got a lot of brown